Hello, welcome to DeVito Podcast, Episode 1. So, this is something that I have revamped since having my other main YouTube channel, which is Joe DeVito, talking about stocks, finance, investing, long term investing, that sort of thing. And I figured the best thing to do would be to break off, start another YouTube channel. And at first, I thought to myself, am I going to be spreading myself too thin? I don't really think so because if the idea is bringing an audience to a YouTube channel where, hey, you guys can watch content about podcasting, education, entertainment, learning, that type of thing, then it'll make me even that much happier. So, episode 1, little life update. Uh, life is pretty good. I have no complaints whatsoever. I have a pretty strong support group of friends, a decent, network. Yeah, work is great. Health wise, everything is good. But going forward, what I really want to outline in this whole podcasting, YouTube, whatever you want to call it, is basically, myself sharing my thoughts, trying to give people more education, just trying to like share things, get things off my shoulders that I have been wanting to get off my shoulder for a long time now. Everything, in a positive vibe for the most part, and just trying to give, spread that wealth and knowledge. Um, Little thing about me, I absolutely do not like filming myself. I absolutely do not like being on camera. But you know what? For me to do something like this, it actually takes a lot. And I figured, hey, if it is extremely hard and extremely difficult, it's probably really good for you. So that's why I'm doing this. I hope you guys can somewhat enjoy my content. Hopefully, you can take something away from it because I'm putting a lot of effort into this. And like I said before, hopefully, you can take something from it. So, little life update. One thing that I really wanted to press on in this video is the idea that, post college, I've been out of college now for 3 years now, graduated in 2020, which was basically like right when COVID went full blown. And I wasn't really affected by COVID too much. It was just more of trying to find a job, establishing a career. And I feel like COVID, for the most part, really divided a lot of things in this country. But more importantly, COVID set a tone where for the first 2 years, 2020, 2021, into 2022, COVID basically suppressed, like that post college feeling. When you graduate from college, you go back to your hometown, you move out of state, you settle down, you find someone, you get married or engaged. I've seen a lot of people who graduated, having families, settling down, taking opportunities in other states. Like, hey, I moved to the East Coast or whatnot. I'm based out of California, if you're wondering. And it's very interesting because as a little life update, I'm looking at a lot of friends of mine who have moved out of state or taken these other opportunities, and it's not even like interesting. It's just more of like wild to me because now that post college life is really starting to hit where people you went to college with you don't associate with anymore or you don't talk to anymore or you just might drift away from each other. It's not, due to a fallout. It's just due to, hey, we're going our own path and we don't really talk that much anymore type of thing. And before you know it, that distance, it just creates like a drift or a rift. And before you know it, you have to create a whole new network. And one thing that I really want to press on is, I've been talking to a few friends of mine graduating post college. They've actually have had a really, really rough time trying to acclimate, in the job market, creating a new network of friends and, whoever. Part of the reason, and what I find actually weird, is because these are people who are extremely social. As far as I knew them in college, they're extremely social. Um, but then post college, they just became like, I wouldn't say nobodies, but they just completely shied away from society. And now they're just working their jobs and they're just extremely quiet. They don't really get out much. And I mean, at the end of the day, we all do what we think is best for us. And, I'm not going to judge you for whatever decision you want to do. You work 9 to 5, you come home, you want to have a beer and go to sleep. That's perfectly fine. But these are people that I knew who were like the people who were always involved in clubs, taking a lot of classes, just very involved on campus. And now they're not. They're not involved in life anymore. They're just working almost mindlessly. And if I were to compare that to myself, in my little life update, that is one thing that I watched because I'm a very observant person. And I said, I don't want to be in that position. So I've been trying to actually travel more. I just got back from New York, not too long ago. Spent a week out there, visit family, and just it was an amazing time. Um, and things like that show that when you accrue time, paid time off from work, you should take it because if you're accruing like weeks on end and you're not using it, it's like at some point, you're not really respecting yourself or your time. Although you have that nice little bank, accrued off to the side, I feel like people should take advantage of that because you're literally getting paid to take time off. And it's sort of like a de-stressor, which is something that a lot of people could use, especially like during this time, in this current atmosphere. A lot of people are just very stressed out. You have a lot of people now who are struggling financially, having to make very important life decisions. And luckily, I haven't had to make those types of decisions yet. If I were to just, myself personally, I've just been investing heavily. I work in the freight industry and I have the good fortune of doing fairly well in this industry. All I can say is that, I'm being treated well and I'm investing a lot on the side. And down the road, I'm going to be looking at, real estate and just trying to create more income, passive income, and whatnot. Just something that could just basically make money for me where I don't essentially have to be working at that present time. It could be like, hey, you're sleeping and you're still generating money while you sleep. And all these things that I realized, really came into play. And this was at the end of 2021 when I first got my job in freight. And I had a pretty rough patch trying to get a job. And it wasn't due to, just like I guess who I was. It was just due to the experience. Because when you graduate during COVID, a lot of people do not want to hire you because, first of all, a lot of jobs aren't hiring because it's COVID. And second of all, if you're graduating during COVID and you only have a bachelor's degree in business, you would think that holds some form of weight. Unfortunately, it doesn't because you're competing with a lot of other people who, which I saw during that time, stooped down and who had like master's degrees or other type of like licenses, and they basically were looking for entry level jobs. That's jobs I should be looking for. And fast forward, I realized that if you want to be extremely successful in society, and I wanted to be very successful, and it came to a breaking point when I just realized, hey, this is like the realization of the world. Like when you're in college and you're in the same classroom as everyone else, you're essentially like on the same level. You take the same test, you study for the same test, you all complete the same homework. But when you graduate from college, it's all up to you now. You can work 40 hours a week and be average, or you can work 60, 70, 80 hours a week, do twice the amount of the average person. And 1 year's time, you're going to accomplish twice the amount as the average person. However, though, you're sacrificing a lot of, social atmosphere. You're sacrificing other things like you may not be working out as much. Your health may be a little bit, slimmer because, hey, you might be giving up more sleep. I'm the type of person who functions fairly well on not that much sleep, but I highly recommend getting a lot of sleep. And what I'm seeing now is that, there's this like rift between when I graduated from college and I considered myself a degenerate, a clown because didn't know what I was doing with my life, and now I'm doing fairly well. So it's not bragging, it's just more of like, hey, I'm just here to share my thoughts, and I'm hoping that, someone can take some form of value from this because I know there's a lot of other people out there who might be feeling the same way. You might be feeling very lost, or you might just feel very down. I would not say depressed, but I would say down in the sense of, you could be doing more with your life, but what's stopping you, what's holding you back? Is it because you're watching too much of the news and it's very, sad to just see things on, on the news channels that's bringing your mood down, or maybe the idea that you're on social media a lot and you're comparing yourself to other people, but you're wondering why you're not doing what they're doing, like traveling more, eating at places where, you can post your food. I don't know. And, that's part of the reason why I deactivated my Instagram because, first of all, I don't like to compare myself to other people. I think we are all our own individual people. And in the sense of life, just go about every day. No one cares about what you do. And even when you post it on Instagram, what you post, someone's probably comparing themselves to you or your post. Like, oh, he went to New York. You're like, wow, I wish I could go to New York. And all of a sudden, that person feels terrible because they don't think they travel enough. And then when I go to New York, I'm thinking like, wow, I'm in New York, but I wish I could spend a little bit more time here. So it's like it's never enough. But you can take what you can get and just be extremely grateful for whatever. And in terms of like life, current day, it's wild to think that 3 years have gone by since COVID began, and COVID did not really impact me too much or even my family, but it was just like a whirlwind of bunch of things just happening, like everywhere. And it affected so many people, and a lot of people were affected, in like on a lifelong scale where things like they're permanently impacted. And I like to think that this like just made me stronger because I realized how dispensable I was. Little backstory. So when I graduated from college, I was doing an internship for a professor, fabulous professor, worked for a federally funded organization that helps small businesses. And this company is amazing. We're helping businesses and whatnot. And without going into the details, we helped a lot of business owners. That internship ended, and between that time, I think it was like June, from June until January, I think it was January of 2021. I didn't work. I just basically traded stocks in a very volatile sense, and there were ups and downs, but I made out with a lot of profit in the end. But besides the point, I went from June until January trying to find a job because it was like COVID. A lot of people just were not hiring, and they just did not care about my application. And when I look at like the stats of I applied to this job and I realized 300 other people applied, or I applied to a total of 300 jobs and I only hear back for like maybe three or four, and out of that three or four, maybe one of them is like somewhat promising. And I was just at that point doing everything I could to throw myself out there to take whatever I could get. And I realized like, wow, I am extremely dispensable. And it wasn't until I got my job at the mortgage industry. It's a great industry to work in when the real estate market is doing well, when interest rates are really good, like low. But it's not a good industry right now with interest rates and mortgage applications having dropped like 10% in the last time I checked about a week ago, they were down 10%, which is a lot. Mortgage applications. So, but this little backstory, I got a job in the mortgage industry. Things were going great, January to May, I want to say. So I was there for a couple of months, and then I realized that, just business started to slow down, and eventually they cut my contract. The way that they cut off my contract, now I don't want this to come off in a negative sense. I have respect for the company, I have respect for the decision of whoever let me go. But when I got a call driving halfway home, right? Halfway home on the freeway, and I get a call from the recruiter who recruited me for this role, and they said, "Hey, like your contract's been cut, blah blah blah." And it was Friday, and they said, "Don't come back on Monday." I thought to myself like, "Wow, I think that's very unprofessional." Just I thought we were all professionals, right? I guess not, because my contract got cut. I was told not to go back into the office on Monday, that they would ship all my stuff from my desk to my house. I said, "That's not very professional in my opinion." So reached out to a friend, and then that Friday they reached out to their manager and said, "Hey, like Joe needs an interview, can you help him out?" So he's like, "Yeah, consider it done, we'll interview him." So that Monday morning I drove in fully dressed, suit and tie. I somehow make my way into the building. I get all my stuff, and like all like the supervisors and the managers are looking at me like, "What is Joe doing here?" And I pack up all my stuff. I pay my respects, and I leave. And I remember one of my supervisors, very sweet lady, very nice lady, good at what she does. She's like, "Oh my God, like I didn't know you got let go." I said, "I didn't know either." I said, "I found out on Friday, and they didn't, basically told me I could get my stuff." And she was like, "Oh my God, that's terrible." But besides that point, she was like, "Why are you so dressed up?" I said, "I have an interview." And they were pretty blown away, like, "Wait, this guy just got let go on Friday, Monday morning, he's got an interview." I said, "Just remember, like, I have an ambition. It's called a paycheck, and it's called scaling, like the next company." So I go to that interview, but long story short, it didn't work out because I just wanted to get out of the mortgage industry. You know, that interview, I just did not want to work in the mortgage industry. It put somewhat of a sour taste in my mouth. And you know what? I wish all the best for the people who work there. But after that happened, quite a few people from that same exact office reached out to me that said, like, I can't believe what happened, blah, blah. They felt it was really unfair. I said, it's not unfair. It's just business. It's just the world. It's the job market. And all of a sudden, like, they said, like, should I leave this job? I said, no, no, no. Like, they cut me. They didn't cut you. But, you know, if you feel like the industry is slowing down, which it is, I said, you might want to consider looking for a new job. So then over the course of like 8 months, I find out that, you know, a lot of people started leaving that company and going off to other opportunities like banking or like consulting or whatever. It's kind of weird. But yeah, and I'm just happy that, you know, they took that opportunity to make the leap of faith because a lot of people feel fear of taking that jump and taking an opportunity because they don't know, you know, like what they might be risking in that present time. And then I realized to myself, like, you know what, I just don't care. So when I got my next job in the freight industry, lo and behold, now I'm making over 2.5 times more than I was in mortgage. And I realized like mortgage was just a flop. I will never go back to that industry. You couldn't pay me 3 times the amount what I'm making now to go back to that industry. And it's funny because now even people now in that mortgage industry, they see my experience, which is like, you know, very short lived, and like, oh, like, would you ever consider working in mortgage? I respectfully have to tell them like, no, I don't want to go back to that industry, but thank you. And I feel like, you know, getting back to the main point here, it's just been like a whirlwind because it made me realize that I was very dispensable in that industry and that companies just simply do not care when they have to consolidate because numbers or, you know, business isn't doing so well. They'll consolidate and they'll cut you right away. Like they do not care. They'll consolidate and they'll take someone else and they'll cross train them to do 2 times the amount of work to save money. That's what it comes down to. But I'm just fortunate and I'm blessed because now I work in an industry that I don't see going out of business. Freight, you know, we ship, you know, majority of produce across the country. You know, freight, like majority of dry goods and freight. Aside from rail ships like the most dry goods from what I know. And then you know, freight like 18 wheelers, they ship majority of like produce. Um, but I don't see that industry going out of business because like you need freight and you need products delivered. So I just find it weird, you know, just 3 years gone by and all of a sudden like in a span of 1 year, 2022, I put on my grind hat and I just went to work and you know, I accomplished so much in 2022 and I did fail a lot, you know, in things that I wanted to accomplish, but it made me realize that like I'm working my way up almost like a stock. You know, you buy it in the beginning, it goes up, it goes down, up and down, but you have to give it time and you have to invest in it in order for it to just do well over time. But you have to be consistent with it. You know, you come into work every single day, and I try to come into work every single day and basically just try my best and learn as much as possible. And this was probably one of the biggest learning curves I've had yet in like anything I've done because I had zero experience with freight and it was just a shock to my brain. I said, well, if you want to do well in this industry, you have to like, you know, nut up and just be better and just learn it. So, yeah, and you know, in 2022, working hard, a lot of hours of productivity, you know, because I realized like, hey, like I don't want to go out the party. I'd rather invest. I'd rather expand my network. And I met a lot of fabulous people in the year of 2022, and we still have very strong, you know, connections slash relationships. People who own like businesses or who are very prominent in their own industry, whether it's freight, real estate, even a couple people in like fashion, design, clothing. I don't know how that really applies to me, but very business oriented people. These are people that I want to connect myself with, and I want to like I just find myself easily, you know, relating to these people because we all think similar, although we're all in like a different industry. And it's pretty cool, you know, and I really have no other complaints, but you know, going forward, I feel like, you know, in the next, you know, year or so, 2023, I think this is going to be a fairly good year because I'm going to make it a good year. I'm not going to hope for it. Um, I'm just gonna grind as hard as I can and just, you know, we'll probably make another video by December and it's gonna be like a little recap comparing to how I feel at this current point in time. So that's my little life update for the Vito podcast episode one. May not be what you're expecting, but take what you can get. So other than that, hope you guys enjoyed this first podcast slash video, whatever you want to call it, and tune in next time. I will talk to you guys later. Take care.